When President Trump spoke in Israel recently, he gave a special shout out to one of his biggest donors, Miriam Adelson.
Look at her sitting there so innocently. She's got 60 billion in the bank, 60 billion.
And after, I'm going to break down why it's worth a full news report.
There was a lot of pressure put on these presidents. It was put on me too, but I didn't yield to the pressure. But every president for decades said, we're going to do it. The difference is I kept my promise and officially recognized the capital of Israel and moved the American embassy to Jerusalem. Isn't that right, Miriam? Look at Miriam. She's back there. Stand up, Miriam. Stand up. Miriam and Sheldon would come into the office. They'd call me. He'd call me. I think they had more trips to the White House than anybody else I could think of. Look at her sitting there so innocently. She's got 60 billion in the bank, 60 billion. And I think she's saying no more. And she loves Israel, but she loves it, and they would come in, and her husband was a very aggressive man, but I loved him. He was a very aggressive, very supportive of me. And he'd call up, can I come over and see you? I say, Sheldon, I'm the president of the United States. It doesn't work that way. He'd come in and would do. But they were very responsible for so much, including getting me thinking about Golan Heights, which is probably one of the greatest things to ever happen to Israel. Miriam, stand up, please. She really is. I mean, she loves this country. She loves this country. Her and her husband are so incredible. We miss him so dearly. But I actually asked her, I'm going to get her in trouble with this, but I actually asked her once, I said, so Miriam, I know you love Israel. What do you love more, the United States or Israel? She refused to answer. That might mean Israel, I must say. We love you. Thank you, darling, for being here. That's a great honor. Great honor. She's a wonderful woman.
The first thing that's hilarious about what he said is that Donald Trump passed an executive order with the international IHRA working definition of anti-Semitism.
It is a game changer. It will go down in history as one of the most important events in the 2,000-year battle against anti-Semitism. Thank you, Mr. President. You did a great job. The people who helped you do this did a great job, and you will be remembered by history for all time for having signed this very important order. Thank you.
Which has also been passed by Sarah Huckabee Sanders, Kristi Noem, Glenn Youngkin, Eric Adams, and over half of American states. It's also been adopted in countries such as Argentina, Australia, France, UK, Germany, Canada. Same exact definition of anti-Semitism. Donald Trump is trying to force universities to adopt this version of anti-Semitism, but he broke one of the rules.
I said, so Miriam, I know you love Israel. What do you love more, the United States or Israel? She refused to answer. That might mean Israel, I must say.
Which is why our founding fathers never intended for hate speech rules for one race, one religion, one country. We went from 1776 until the 2010s without this international definition of anti-Semitism being passed into law and into our country. But apparently you're just an anti-Semite if you notice that they're doing it and disagree with it from a logical constitutional standpoint. The anti-Semitism working definition rule that he broke is this one. It says accusing Jewish citizens of being more loyal to Israel or to the alleged priorities of Jews worldwide than to the interests of their own nations.
United States or Israel? She refused to answer. That might mean Israel, I must say.
Which Donald Trump subtly did there. He also said that now deceased husband of Miriam Adelson, rest in peace, Sheldon Adelson, was aggressive in his dealings at the White House.
Her husband was a very aggressive man, but I loved him. He was a very aggressive, very supportive of me.
Here's an older video of Trump that most people missed, where he said that the Adelsons were in the White House more than pretty much anyone else, always asking for things for Israel.
Just as I promised, I recognized Israel's eternal capital and opened the American embassy in Jerusalem. Jerusalem became the capital. I also recognized Israeli sovereignty over the Golan Heights. You know, Miriam and Sheldon would come into the White House probably almost more than anybody outside of people that worked there. And they were always after, and as soon as I'd give them something, always for Israel. As soon as I'd give them something, they'd want something else. I'd say, give me a couple of weeks, will you please? But I gave them the Golan Heights, and they never even asked for it. You know, for 72 years, they've been trying to do the Golan Heights, right? And even Sheldon didn't have the nerve. But I said, you know what? I said to David Friedman, give me a quick lesson, like 5 minutes or less on the Golan Heights. And he did. And I said, let's do it. We got it done in about 15 minutes, right? Yeah.
Now, if you didn't know, in his last presidential run, Miriam Adelson gave him $100 million. And in his first term, it was said that Sheldon Adelson gave Trump and the Republicans over $424 million. Now, of course, this doesn't show up in Israeli lobbying money. And when all the Zionists post on Twitter, I don't understand why everybody talks about this stuff. It doesn't even come close to all the other lobbies. Well, that's because it's not being added in. And if you suggest that it should be added in, you will be labeled as an anti-Semite because you're breaking the same anti-Semitism rule that Donald Trump broke, which is accusing an American citizen or a dual citizen of dual loyalty. You're not allowed to do that.
States or Israel? She refused to answer. That might mean Israel, I must say.
Shame on you, Donald Trump. If you're going to pass the international definition of anti-Semitism into the United States of America against what the founding fathers wanted, at least you could follow your own hate speech rules. But since you can't, why are you passing them? And here's the thing. In the past, I've chatted with a Zionist Republican influencer named Conservative Mama. We had a great debate. I thought it was wonderful, and I'm super grateful she came on my show. I brought up the fact that there were donors donating hundreds of millions of dollars to Trump to do things for Israel, which Trump now admits. Before, he had never said that, so it just seemed like I was inventing it out of thin air. Luckily, Donald Trump has such a big mouth. Now I can point to those videos. But when I brought it up, she essentially just wrote it off as some kooky, crazy conspiracy theory. Like I'm just some lunatic, even though it was always obvious. Is it possible? Do you think it's possible that it's not their faith dictating these decisions to pass basically blasphemy laws against Christianity, their own religion? Do you think it's possible that it's donor money, hundreds of millions of dollars of donors, in the same way that,
well, if you want to, like, you can go into it, and hey, I'm a big conspiracy theory person.
Well, it's not conspiracy. Donor money is not a conspiracy.
You want to talk about like Jews running the world? Is that
no?
I mean, that's kind of like
no. This is. But here's the thing. But here's the thing. It's if I say I'm so glad you came on. If I say big pharma paid off both parties in order to, get politicians to support the pharmaceutical industry, you would be like, yeah, no, that's true. But the second that I say that donors are giving hundreds of millions of dollars to both parties, but the Republican Party to do these things, you go to this like conspiracy theory in your head, which is exactly what the left would do to you if you talked about the pharmaceutical lobbying money. They would. I made up a word. It's called anti-pharmetic, which means, you're suggesting that big pharma controls politicians. It's anti-pharmetic. It's,
right.
Anti-science.
So do you think you think big donors are paying people to support Israel and to support to suppress free speech, anyone speaking out against Israel? Is that what you think is going on? Like, if you're going to be honest.
I think that donors pay politicians to influence politics. I don't think that. I know that. I don't even question it. I think that's 1,000% true. If a major donor, a billionaire, like say, for example, Bill Gates gave $100,000 to Doug Burgum in North Dakota. Do I think he really just likes North Dakotans? Not really. Maybe. But I'm guessing there's some sort of transaction for that 100,000, even though Bill Gates could give a lot more money. But for a state race, that's a lot. I'm telling you. But let me tell you real quick.
Yeah,
because I already told you, but maybe it went over your head. George Soros. People talk about him donating to the left, right? There's a donor that gave more money than George Soros gave to the one election, hundreds of millions of dollars, not $1 million like Pfizer gave to Trump. That seemed to be enough to get Trump to hire pharmaceutical lobbyists. $1 million, hundreds of millions of dollars. it's all on paper. It's nothing crazy. I mean, you could look up donor money. It has to be public in America for the most part. He's on stage saying, unfortunately, I served in the American military and I want my kids to serve in the IDF.
Somebody said that the Adelson family has nothing to gain except that which is in our heart. I am not Israeli. The uniform that I wore in the military, unfortunately, was not an Israeli uniform. It was an American uniform, although my wife was in the IDF, and one of my daughters was in the IDF, and my two little boys, one of whom will be bar mitzvah tomorrow. Hopefully he'll come back. Thank you. Hopefully he'll come back. His hobby is shooting, and he'll come back and be a sniper for the IDF.
He gives hundreds of millions of dollars to the GOP. Within 2 years, they're passing these speech laws. And when they're passing it, you could just look at who's in the room. Alan Dershowitz says he's going to leave the Democratic Party if they don't stop with this Israel stuff, which means the border wall, nothing that's happened in the last 20 years made him want to be a Republican, except for this topic. But of course, it's also anti-Semitism to say that he likes that country, because now that's hate speech according to the hate speech law. He was in the room. Jared Kushner was in the room. Trump gave the one donor's wife a Presidential Medal of Freedom. I mean, it's not really rocket science to me. Do I think that these donors don't want these anti-Semitism laws? No, of course not. Or else they'd speak out against it. Or honestly, they'd probably get the Republican Party to stop. Because if you give hundreds of millions of dollars to a politician, there's a lot of influence to be had. So it's like, it's not just that I think that it's happening. I mean, it's pretty obvious to me.
Right. But don't you think telling someone they can't talk about something, like why? Okay, let's say all of them are putting this money forward and they're saying, hey, let's push these these anti-Semitism laws, tell people they can't talk this way. Don't you think that that's going to make more people want to talk that way? Like, isn't that just a natural and like in the human, when I'm told I can't do something, I want to do it. Like, it makes me want to do it. So what is the agenda behind that then? If you're like, hey, don't do this, do you think that's going to help the situation or hurt the situation?
I think it's not. I agree with you. I think it's a terrible strategy. I've even since 2019, I was like, this is not good. This is not a good way to create healing and peace and whatever. Like, it's so bad. But here's the thing. This is what happens when you have no self-awareness and no self-accountability, and you're constantly playing the victim. Is you never think of these things because you're always just blaming someone else. So I think I think on one hand that maybe they want people more upset because then that can justify more things. Or I think that some people are so completely oblivious that it's just like, they have zero self-accountability. Like, in their eyes, it's always everyone else's fault. They're always the victim. And anybody simply stating any factual statement is hate speech and needs to be abolished, which is like you said, a crazy way to get people to like you. I mean, it's the worst way too, but that's the thing is I think
right. I think
that it's real quick. Sorry. It's being passed all over the world. So it's why would Christie Noam, a state that probably has such a small amount of that ethnic group and that religion, and she's codifying into law the IHRA laws. Is it really hate speech to say that there's some sort of power going on there to get these politicians to do it? Or do you think the governor or the mayor of São Paulo in Brazil just woke up and was like, I'm going to write the same exact hate speech phrases on a piece of paper and sign it into law in Brazil and Argentina?
Right. I think it's stupid. So you have to think either these people are really stupid, or it's going to cause more hate. More anti-Semitism.
And at the end of that interview, she was like, well, why would they be passing all these hate speech rules and laws when it doesn't work? And I was like, I'm glad you brought that up, because I've been bringing it up since 2019. And because I brought it up in 2019, I essentially got blacklisted from Republican Party and media. They were calling me far right and anti-Semitic for 6 years now. They've been lying on my name. They've been smearing me in the press. They've been doing everything they can to make people hate me, because I explained, one, they're not constitutional. Two, they're absolutely insane. And 3, if you read all of the IHRA anti-Semitism hate speech laws, you will be baffled by what they're trying to pass, because one of them even mentions Jesus. I consider it an anti-Christian speech law, but Christians are so brainwashed, they're willing to pass anti-Christian speech laws to help a foreign nation. It's obviously not what the founding fathers intended. Like I said, we went from 1776 until the 2010s without a special hate speech rule for one race, one religion, and one foreign country, but now we need one. And like conservative mama said, it doesn't work. So there's only one of two options. Either certain people completely lack self-accountability and self-awareness to the point where they're doing things that make people annoyed, and then when people get annoyed, they just scream anti-Semitism, which then makes people not like it, and the more you don't like it, the more they lie about you, smear you, and yell at you, which seems to be, if I'm being honest, a historical pattern here. Or the other option is they know exactly what they're doing, and the more that people get annoyed, the more that they point to that and potentially either fundraise or achieve more power and pass more laws on top of that. I don't know which one it is, but maybe you could make the case that passing hate speech rules internationally in almost every Western country for one race, one religion, and one foreign nation is somehow going to make people like that nation. When me and conservative mama had that chat, and when I started talking about it years prior to the chat with conservative mama in 2019, most people didn't even know what I'm talking about. Now it's become mainstream conversation, and all of these pro-Israel people are like, I don't understand why everybody wants to talk about it. Well, I do, because I saw this coming 6 years ago, because it's just obvious. One, it's just not going to work, but also the same way the left calls everything racist and homophobic, and that doesn't work. It works for a little bit, but then over time, people tend to get annoyed by it. It's the same thing with the term anti-Semitism. And when it comes to Trump's mega donors, the press will say they're paying him to do things for Israel, but if you say that they're paying him to do things for Israel, you're just being a crazy, kooky, anti-Semitic hater. Thank you, Donald Trump, for having such a big mouth. Maybe he purposely did that because even though he probably appreciates all the money that he's receiving, maybe he doesn't like the aggressive way that they lobby him. I don't know. You'll have to ask Donald Trump. But I wanted to make this video and bring this up because the amount of money pouring into media and politics, where the prerequisite is essentially do things for Israel or else we'll call you an anti-Semite, make you look insane, and give the money to someone else. I don't even know if it's quantifiable, yet it's not going to show up on all of these lists that the Zionists are posting online to say, well, where is it? Just like AIPAC doesn't have to register as a foreign lobby, neither do a lot of organizations, a lot of donors, and a lot of groups who are paying to get people to do things for Israel. Without playing the victim, because I'm super grateful and I've had this experience in almost every industry I've been in. I was in the music industry before this, and it's like if you don't do certain things, they're just not interested. They'll find somebody else. It's the same thing with media, and people don't even realize how deep it goes. I was extremely early to supporting President Trump when it was unpopular and speaking the truth as somebody that has a past where I wasn't Republican and conservative, and I was getting all these invites, all these opportunities. I was getting featured on the news. I've been almost offered multiple deals with multiple different news and podcast organizations, and there always seems to be a block. And once again, I'm not playing the victim. I don't care. I'm fine by myself if I have to. But when I look back on it and also talk to people who worked for these organizations who just told me, they would always tell me since 2019, Anomaly, everyone's calling you far right. Anomaly, everybody's calling you an anti-Semite. And I believe that if anybody ever told you what I'm telling you on Fox News, Newsmax, or most of these Republican organizations, they probably wouldn't be allowed to be there, and they probably would just get replaced by somebody else. I don't think these news organizations want people to know this information. In the same way that Tucker Carlson was clearly the most honest and interesting and unique news host at Fox News, he's now gone, and they have a bunch of people that are basically just establishment drones or Donald Trump nut riders with no mind or thoughts of their own. It's not a coincidence. It's a control system because there's certain things that they want you to see and there's certain things that they don't want you to see. Probably because if you saw them, you would agree with me. Most people in America, especially Republicans, don't think that one race, one religion, and one foreign nation should have special speech laws. And they would want to know, the same way if it was another country or big pharma, if hundreds of millions of dollars are being pumped into politics to get President Trump to do certain things. But there's also the emotion of obsessing over Donald Trump that people just don't want to hear it regardless. However, the point that I was trying to make is that I believe that a huge roadblock to me getting certain opportunities was the fact that I was early talking about these IHRA speech laws, and most media organizations consider what I'm saying anti-Semitic. They not only don't want to talk about it, but they don't want anyone to talk about it. They're more interested in smearing the character of the people who are talking about it. Once again, not playing the victim. God is great. I'm grateful for being able to pave my own way, and perhaps that's best for me anyway. But once again, to those who say, where is the foreign lobby? I mean, do you want to be serious? Do you want to count all the mega donors that are dumping money into both parties to do things for Israel? Do you want to talk about all the organizations? Do you want to talk about all the media companies? I mean, if you look at Larry Ellison, who's the second richest person in the world right now, and his connections to the IDF and what he thinks about Israel.
Tell us, what is your connection to Israel?
Well, the renewal of the Jewish state is something that I think touches all of us. For 2,000 years, we were a stateless people, and now we have a country of our own, defended by all the brave men and women of the IDF. So anything we can do to support them, who, devote their lives for preserving the state of Israel, keeping the people safe, and allowing our state to continue in sometimes in very, very difficult situations. Our state. And
the fact that his son just bought CBS and hired Barry Weiss, an insufferable Zionist fake opposition shill, to run their entire media organization. Do you want to talk about what happened to Candace Owens at the Daily Wire? Do you want to talk about how Tucker Carlson started talking after he left Fox News? Do you want to talk about how Matt Gaetz started talking after he lost the Attorney General position to Pam Bondi? Do you really want to know how deep this goes? Do you really want to know how much money spent on it? Do you really want to know how many organizations worth billions of dollars have this essentially as a prerequisite for what they are willing to and not put out? And once again, even if you don't get hired, which of these organizations are going to use their multi-billion-dollar power to start viciously smearing you as far-right or an anti-Semite when you start noticing these patterns? If you added all those things up, I'm sure that number would be jaw-dropping. But of course, that's hateful to even suggest that those numbers should be added up, right? And once again, Donald Trump, whether you love him or hate him, he's the type of guy to essentially talk about his donor at an event where most politicians would be ashamed and won't bring it up because it's almost like the hidden hand of politics. Trump, no, he just talks about whatever he wants. So I'm at least grateful that he brought it up, providing another opportunity to show people into how politics really works. And although Trump is interesting and entertaining, I wish people realized that he was an interesting and entertaining politician instead of thinking he's some sort of savior of humanity, because then I believe Americans could start to put the pieces together to what's going on. But Trump's greatest strength is also his greatest weakness. Although millions of people are waking up to what's going on and people realize that he did flip-flop on Ukraine and is being even more bullish on war than Joe Biden was, even though he's doing big deals with Pfizer, even though he's laughing with Bill Gates at the White House, he's not even pretending to be on your side. He doesn't have to anymore. People hallucinate these fake theories for Trump because they think he's Batman in their head and they're so obsessed with him. I think Trump is a better option than Kamala. He's more interesting. He's more off the cuff. I get it. But my question is, when will enough people on the right stop fantasizing and hero fetishizing over Donald Trump and start actually calling a spade and just looking at what he's doing? Like, he's a pharmaceutical shill. He's definitely not a free market capitalist. He's a borderline socialist and communist with his policies. But everybody just thinks, well, this must be for my best interest. Yeah, was locking the country down for your best interest? You think cutting deals with Pfizer's for your best interest? You think him being buddies with Bill Gates is for you? I mean, some of it, I guess you could say, is for you if he's doing something that makes sense. But all I'm asking is that people pay attention. Because just like everybody knows that Lindsey Graham is a puppet, Marco Rubio's a puppet, Joe Biden's a puppet, Obama's a puppet, everybody knows that. But with Donald Trump, they have this fantasy that he doesn't take people's money and he doesn't do what they want. But it's literally just a fantasy. Donald Trump is as big of a shill as anybody else at this point. And all you have to do is look at his old tweet when he actually wasn't controlled by everybody, and he made fun of Marco Rubio, saying he was going to be a perfect little puppet of the Adelsons. And now Donald Trump is on stage admitting he's essentially that puppet. He just has more swagger, more charisma, and he's funnier. That's it. Marco Rubio didn't change into some hero of the Republican Party. Donald Trump became Marco Rubio. And Marco Rubio is a good politician because he's smooth, he's well-spoken, and he makes those other dingbats look like dingbats. But the real transition isn't Marco Rubio into Donald Trump. The real transition is Donald Trump the puppet turning into Marco Rubio the puppet. Let me know what you think in the comment section, whether you agree or disagree at any point. I appreciate you for at least considering what I'm saying. God bless you. Have a good day. I'll be back with more videos soon, and I appreciate you watching. God Bless hats are back in stock. I have white God Bless hats. I have black God Bless hats. I have black God is Great hats, and I have black and blue beanies for the winter and fall time. Go to dreamrare.com, check it out, and I appreciate everybody supporting. It means a lot, and it helps me stay independent. God bless you.